fantastic.
Superb. You couldn't ask for better. This is the pairing that gives us once again another extra time, and what a game. The atmosphere below was absolutely brilliant. Both sets of players, I'd say massive respect to them. They served up a cracker there. Wexford for long periods bossed that match. They were in control. Liam Dunn mentioned it there about the chances they missed. Clare, on the other hand, you'd have to say, haven't looked anything like themselves from last year, but they did show great character to stay hanging in there and to believe. And that is the key there when you are under pressure like that, to have the belief in yourself when it looked as if that match was gone from them. They hung in there and they're still there now, and they're going to be, I think, a little bit more. I'd expect a bit more bite from them next weekend. OK,
we'll chat about Clare more in a moment, but that was a fantastic start from Wexford. We actually have a graph here showing the scores in that first half. We can have a look at it. And Donald, it was a brilliant start from Wexford, wasn't it?
Yeah, Des, like Eddie was saying, the start was absolutely terrific, and you can see Wexford here in the purple. They got off to an absolute flyer of a start and left Clare in their wake. And in terms of trying to understand that, and trying to understand what type of system that Clare were employing, I was very interested in looking at this here. Clare didn't employ a sweeper yesterday, and as you can see here from a Clare puck out, all of the Clare backs, including their cornerback, follow their men all of the ways out the field, which has the result that it leaves a lot of space. You can even see the Wexford man there, Liam Oak, looking into the space where they want to leave the ball inside to give the forwards as good an opportunity as possible. And what we've seen over the last number of years, forwards have gotten that good that when they are left one-on-one or 2v2 like you see here, they can exploit that space. If you fast forward all the ways to 20 minutes gone in the game, that happened on numerous occasions, and Clare were actually 10 points down at this stage. You can see Davy and his backroom team and one of his runners here obviously telling Tony Kelly that they wanted to make a change, and Donlan, for the first time, you can see it's very obvious here, he doesn't follow his man from the puck out, and you can see the way he sits inside in the hole or the pocket, if you like. And in fact, from that point on, which is about 20 minutes gone, to the end of that half, Clare actually dominated the game. And the first puck out that came after the change was made, you can see a perfect example. He was there as a covering defender. Clare then could play the type of game that they like, which is short passing, plenty of movement, fleetness of foot and fleetness of wrist. And, Davy did well to make the change. You can see here on the graph, if you look at the point from where they made the move, which is just before 20 minutes, all the way up to half-time, Wexford's performance actually flatlined. So statistics like this, they're actually a bit like sports psychology. People can be a bit embarrassed about using them, but they can be very effective in the background in terms of trying to understand what happened.
And it worked well. We give credit to Wexford, though, for a hell of a gamey performance. But you did make a point before, I think in the Dublin match, but they have to take those chances.
Yeah, and Lee mentioned it there, and it's not, Wexford bashing. I mean, I'd love nothing more than to see Wexford back up at the top table. But you'd have to say, look, they've done everything right here, brilliant, put the ball into the pockets that Donald was talking about, and then the finish just wasn't there. That's a shocking wide, really. In the first half, Rory Jacob, when we pause it here for a second, you look at where's the biggest target to go for. He goes for power instead of putting that along the ground where Pat Donlan can't cover it. That was into the corner. Clare sprung out. Lee Chin with it in the second half again. Now, you look at David McInerney here. He's right in his keeper's line of vision. So for me, that ball has to go across into the far corner low. You have a Wexford fella on the edge of the small square if the keeper does get a touch to that. Yeah. But I think if he puts that into the far corner low, Kelly in goal has not a hope. And, Liam McGovern, who had a good game last night, scored 1-2, 1-3. This was the sixth wide on the spin for Wexford just after half-time. They hit 6 of them in a row. And again,
look, morale,
I think if we spoke about that a few weeks ago, about them polishing up that, if they could, they'd have had Clare bet out the gate there last night, and there's no way Clare would have had the comeback. So I think they're not far away. They have the raw material there, the players. It's just a bit of youth, a bit of inexperience. That's something they have to work on. Definitely something to be positive. And I'd imagine they should be very up for that match next weekend.
Okay. Wexford going the right direction, there's no question about it.
Davy Fitz, we saw clearly very angry about the decision to give Podge Collins a red card. We can look at it. Eddie, was it a red card?
Yeah, it is, I'm afraid. This is the rules. You know, Davy spoke about it there, about touching the face guard. I think, unfortunately, and I mean, Podge was probably our little baby here last year. We felt we had a very
fell in love with him, to be honest. Yeah.
But look, you can see that it's a very deliberate action. He pulls the face guard, and that is specifically why that rule came in. You know, I think, to be fair to Davy, you'd like to say, look, it was a touch of the face guard, it was accidental. It wasn't, and there's no doubt about it. Unfortunately, it is. The problem is it could hurt. You know, you've no control. It's very hard to defend that. You grab a fella by the face guard, and I got vilified myself here a few years ago by some of the lads here for doing a tally canning. It is dangerous when you pull a face guard like that.
Dunloe.
Podge Collins, not a dirty player, but the rules are there, and they're there for good reason. Cathal McAllister was absolutely right, so I have to disagree with Davy on that one.
Okay. One last thing, Clare All-Ireland champions, they're maybe not firing on all cylinders yet. Is that fair? I mean, certainly the comeback was good, etc., but not on all cylinders yet?
Yeah, not firing on all cylinders, Des, and we're within a whisker of being out of the All-Ireland series. And from me looking in, it'd be a shame if this Clare team doesn't fulfil its potential. And it'd be a shame if it didn't go on and have a right rattle off of the All-Ireland series. There's bad vibes coming out. You know, I know maybe we're on Podge's case tonight, but didn't like the sound of it a couple of weeks ago when I heard he was so involved with the football. Davy yesterday afterwards speaking about forces working against him. Look, we know that Davy, it can be hard work at times, but the man will work harder than anybody else for Clare's success, and he's been a terrific servant to Clare, both as a player and a manager, and is a terrific manager. And I think that the people in Clare and the powers that be would be better served by cutting Davy a bit of slack.
Eddie?
Yeah, he gave an interview last night and we heard it. He spoke very deliberately and about the forces working within the county. Now, like that, there's probably two sides to every story. It's possibly an issue with the clubs. I think the club matches they've been sought to put them on hold for whatever reason. But look, I mean, he did speak about the forces working against him, and that would be an awful shame if that is the case. You know, I can only speak from our own point of view in Kilkenny. We have our 5th round of club matches coming up next weekend, which is a positive, but we don't have, I suppose, the football working again in that regard. And that's, from what I gather,
football isn't working against it now, to be fair, and Podge is playing on the team his dad is manager of. Isn't that fair?
I question that, Des. I've made my views that, you know, to perform to the best of your ability, and there's all credit due to the likes of Podge Collins and the Cork players that are dual players. We're absolutely privileged as an association that players will do their best to serve two such demanding masters. But in my opinion, you're not going to get the maximum out of yourself in either by doing that. And the last thing I'll say on Clare is...
that's different than being a force working against.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's very hard with his dad over the team. It's an impossible situation for him.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about Clare had a fantastic team in the late 90s. And they mightn't be happy with me saying it, but I believe that they didn't fulfil their potential. And it would be a shame if the next great team that has come along now, which we have, if they weren't to do so.
OK, take out your phone. Ger Loughnane is going to be ringing you immediately. Thanks very much for your company, Eddie and Dunloe. More of the weekend football action coming up in just a few minutes. But first, our feature match from the All-Ireland Camoige Championship. And this week we feature the clash of Wexford and Cork, watched by Pat McAuliffe.
Two unbeaten sides met at Wexford Park, where the home squad took on a Cork team they had defeated in the 2012 All-Ireland final. This was certainly the game of two halves, with Wexford building up a winning advantage in the first half with a strong wind at their backs. This despite Cork taking the lead through this Katrina Mackey score in the opening minute. The home side then took over as they caused problems for the Cork defence, with Jackie Quigley and captain Kate Kelly finding their range. Then came the first goal of the game, as full forward Katrina Parrock raced through to belt home a fine goal from the right-hand side. The Liberty Insurance player of the match was Ursula Jacob, who would end with 9 points from play and place balls, with another immense contribution for her county. Wexford then struck a second goal, when the informed Parrock set up Reid Gordon, who first timed the ball to the Cork net. And Orla Cotter, free for the Leesiders, saw her side trail by 12 points at the break, as Wexford